With the released and retained list due to be released in the next few days, I'm going to give my list of players who I'd keep, sell, loan, and players who I'd release after their contract expires at the football club. Also speak about the loan players as well. Obviously 7 that finished the season, see what potentially could happen with them. Starting off with the goalkeepers then, we'll start off with Sam Hornby. Permanently contract to the football club, I would let his contract expire in the summer. I think obviously second choice, and he's had a few games over March and April when Tommy Simkin was away with international call-up. Hasn't really put a foot wrong, and even in the cups as well, made some good saves in the penalty shootout. But, something, going forward, we can strengthen in that goalkeeping department. And yeah, 1 year deal, I'd let that expire going into the summer. Then we'll speak about Tommy Simkin, obviously I said, speak about the loanees. I think what will happen with him next season, I don't think we'll get him back. So, yeah, a fact of he'll get, go back to Stoke next season. I think he'll be second choice there to, get some experience. I think Tommy Simkin, for a young goalkeeper, I think he's had a good loan spell, especially in the last kind of 4 or 5 weeks. I think he's really stepped up. On to the defenders then. We're going to start off with 3 defenders that are contracted at the football club. Tyler Allen, David Akagbu and Connor Barrett. Tyler Allen, we must keep him. I think he should be club captain next season. I think he's had a brilliant season, led by example, but I feel like he's going to get some interest from League One, so we'll wait and see what happens in the summer with him. David Akagbu, obviously contracted with the football club. He's going to stay, but he can't be starting, I don't think, in the back line next season. I think we can improve on him in terms of quality, in terms of recruitment and signing players. Connor Barrett as well, obviously, will stay. First half of the season was brilliant. The second half of the season tailed off in terms of his performances, but he could potentially be a good player in terms of if he was coached, obviously, in the right kind of way. Defensively can be a little bit vulnerable at times, but going forward, we saw it in the first half of the season, he's definitely got the potential. Right, onto the defenders that contracts are currently expiring, and I would offer a new deal to, and hopefully start the football club. I'd offer a new deal to Harry Williams and Evan Weir. I think Harry Williams has had a real good season. Obviously, he was out the side for a bit as well, and in that run, we did miss him in that spell. I think he's everything you want in a defender. Old school, wins everything in the air. I'd keep him. Evan Weir as well. Obviously, it all depends on, what happens with the manager. I think there'll be a decision made on the manager first before the release and retain list does get released. But Evan Weir, been very unlucky under Matt Sadler to not get more games personally. I think his deliveries into the box, I think all round as well. I think he's a decent player and I'd like to keep him. Defenders whose contracts are currently expiring and I wouldn't offer a new deal to are Oisin McKenty, Donovan Daniels, Priestley Ferguson, Rico Brown and Liam Gordon. Starting off with Oisin McKenty, if he was offered a new deal, I wouldn't be completely against it because I think he's a good defender on his day, but I've got a feeling he will leave anyway, so I think his contract will expire anyway. I think, there's obviously been a debate, is he a defender or midfield? Definitely a defender. Personally, on the whole, I think he's, like I said, a decent defender. He could be a good signing for someone. Obviously, there's rumours of him going to Scotland a couple of weeks ago. Donovan Daniels, I think his time's up at Walsall. That 22-23 season, he was a decent defender for us, but, he's had some unfortunate injuries, and I think obviously his time's up in terms of his contract. Same with Priestley Ferguson, been unlucky with injuries. When he's played, he's looked decent, especially at the start of the season. Then he hasn't obviously been able to get back into the team due to injuries. Rico Brown, I believe we've got an option to another year, so if we do activate that, I won't be against that either. But I think for Rico Brown's career, his immediate career, he'll want to get games, so potentially he could turn down a deal. I think he's actually a good player, and what I've watched in the Cups, and probably another player that's been unlucky under Matt Sadler's selections at times, but yeah, I could see his contract expiring in the summer. And then Liam Gordon, obviously that would probably split the fan base a little bit in terms of this decision, but I think he's been way off it this season. I think he was, probably one of our best players last season, but this season I think he's been nowhere near it, especially the second half of the season. And I think he will move on from the football club. He's had a couple of good seasons at Walsall, but yeah, it could be the time for him to move on for his career. And to finish off the defenders section, obviously we got Nathan Asimwe on loan from Charlton Athletic. I would look to bring back Nathan Asimwe on a permanent deal. I think in the games he's shown, I think he's shown he's quite a good all-round kind of full-back, wing-back that could be really vital for us. He also can play off the left as well and the right. Could be really versatile. Obviously with Charlton getting promoted as well, something that we could look into in the summer. In the midfield then we've got one midfielder contracted at the football club going to next season, Charlie Lakin. I think selections, again, we speak about selection from Matt Sadler at times. He hasn't probably been in the team when we need him. He provides you with that energy in the midfield in terms of the press. And I thought first half of the season he had a good impact on the side. Obviously got him into next season. And yeah, could be a decent player for us for next season. There's another midfielder contract at the football club, but I would be looking to sell in the summer is Brandon Comley. He's got another year on his contract. I just don't think he's good enough. And in terms of the quality you need to get promoted out of this league in a top quality side, I think he can do a job at times, but could be a player that we look to move on. I just don't think he offers enough in that role personally. Onto the midfielders who contracts are currently expiring at the football club. There's two I'd offer new deals to and hopefully keep. One of them Ryan Sturck and the other one Jamie Jellis. Jamie Jellis does have an option to another year in his contract, so something we'll probably activate in the release and retain list. Starting with Ryan Sturck, I think we've got to keep him. I thought he wasn't great yesterday in the playoff final, but on the whole, I think he's been a consistent player for us. And in terms of a core team, I think he's someone you can build around in that midfield. Like I said, he's been consistent for most of the season. Breaks up the play really good in there. Does the basics quite good, and I would keep Ryan Sturck. Jamie Jellis as well. Yeah, he has gone off the ball in the second half of the season. I thought he was brilliant in the first half of the season. A really exciting player to watch. But, you know, going into next season, a fresh start, I think he could be another big player for us. He's shown it in the first half of this season, but he could potentially leave the football club if better offers coming for him. Then midfielders I would release then this summer and let their contract expire are Jack Ewing and Ronan Mayer. I think in terms of Jack Ewing, on his day when he's fully fit, he's a decent player for League 2 level, but, you know, he's been unlucky with injuries and, you know, he's never really fully fit for a whole season. So I'd look to move him on, but I'd wish him all the best if that does happen. Then Ronan Mayer, another player I do like. I think he's exciting when, you know, he gets the ball and he can take on a play. Something that we probably have missed at times in the squad. And obviously showed it at Tamworth on loan in the National League. I think for his career, I think he'll be looking to move on. But potentially we could give him another deal, another year, and see what happens. Obviously, again, it all depends. Obviously, who's in charge going into next season, who makes the decision on the release and retain list. But no doubt, he could be potentially a real good player. Now, speaking about midfielders that have been on loan, then Alfie Chang, George Hall, and Darius Lipsuk, who was on loan from start. We didn't see him. So I can't comment on him. On the two Blues loanees, George Hall and Alfie Chang. I think if they were available to come back, I'd look to maybe bring them back. Especially Alfie Chang. I think if we could play a different style next season that suits him, I think he could be a real key player in that kind of holding midfielder role. Yesterday wasn't his type of game. The game just kind of bypassed him in the midfield. George Hall on his day, fully fit, he's a good player for League 2 level and probably one that could play at League 1 level. But for both of them, that's obviously, with all the loan players, it's not in our hands, and obviously they could obviously be loaned out to League 1 level, which we won't be playing next season, unfortunately. Onto the strikers then, we've currently got two strikers contracted to the football club, Josh Gordon and Levi Amanchi. I wouldn't have both of them in the squad going into next season. Josh Gordon, I'd look to sell permanently. We'll be interested to see what happens with Josh Gordon. I think obviously he's had his, you know, probably his issues with injuries this season. He's had picked up a couple, obviously one at the start of the season, then he come back, then picked up another injury. But I just don't think not good enough for good enough in a side that wants to, you know, really challenge and get promoted if we want to do that next season. Levi Amanchi obviously signed him in January. At times, you know, when we played against Doncaster away, Port Vale at home, I thought that you could see a player in there. But recently, I think it's probably calling for a loan move maybe next season for him, maybe to the National League, and just see how he gets on. But again, in terms of quality, is he good enough to be in a squad or starting for a side that really wants to push next season? If we want to do that into the top three, I'm not quite sure. So maybe a loan move could be beneficial for him. So the strikers out of contract then. Albert Adama obviously isn't a striker, but played the majority of the season there. Danny Johnson, Jamil Matt, and Douglas James Taylor. I wouldn't probably offer a deal to any of them. The only one maybe I'd offer a deal to is Albert Adama because I think he can provide you with some good experience and still got the quality. But I'm not sure if he'll want to stay around next season. We'll wait and see. But I think he's a top bloke. Danny Johnson, he'll be leaving in the summer, no doubt. Not in the plans. He hasn't been in the plans for Matt Sadler in the last 2 seasons. And the kind of the treatment of Danny Johnson hasn't been great for his career. Joined us. The expectations was high after his previous loan spell, and it hasn't worked out. And it should have really. I think definitely got the ability to score goals at this level. We haven't seen that. Jamil Matt, I think he needs to retire. I think he needs to hang his boots up. Yesterday showed that he just hasn't got the legs anymore. Doesn't propose a threat or an outlet up front. And yeah, I wouldn't be offering him a new deal. No chance. And then Douglas James Taylor, who's obviously on loan at Droid at the moment. I think obviously we'll let his contract expire, and I think he'll go to Droid on a permanent deal. But yeah, the striking department is the area where Trevella have got to spend big in the summer personally. Last 3 January transfer windows, 3 loanees, strikers have gone back. We can't let that happen going into next season. Then strikers on loan. Ellis Harrison on loan from MK Dons. He's obviously been released by MK Dons. And Ethan Wheatley, who joined on loan from Man United. Obviously, Ethan Wheatley, we haven't seen him for months. I think his last game was Port Vale at home. That loan move has not worked out. Ellis Harrison, no, I wouldn't look at signing him on a permanent next season. I think yesterday could have been a potential kind of one we could have brought off the bench. But yeah, we've got to be looking for better next season. So that's what I'd do in terms of the release and retained list, in terms of players I'd keep, offer to sell, loan out, and players whose contract are expiring. I think it's going to be a really busy summer. I think a lot of players are going to move on. Even a couple of the contracted players, Taylor Allen, Connor Barrett, could potentially move on if the offers coming from teams higher up. Say League One side coming for them. We'll wait and see, but it's going to be a busy summer. We'll wait to see what happens in the next couple of days in terms of news at Walsall. Make sure you subscribe. Follow the TikTok as well, Seb Taylor WFC, so you don't miss any news on Walsall. Let me know your release and retained list in the comments, and up the Saddlers.